Taiwan, but dropped those efforts. Lin pleaded guilty last month to mishandling classified information, communicating national defense information, and failing to report foreign contacts. He was born in Taiwan and became an American citizen and joined the Navy. The prosecution said the 40-year-old sold military secrets in order to impress women. Dave Packer, ABC News.
An appeal in the case is automatic. Lynn continues to be held in confinement in the brig at Naval Station Norfolk. A Canadian nurse has pleaded guilty to killing 8 elderly nursing home residents. More from ABC's Danielle Capelli.
It was a hard job.
In a chilling 2.5-hour taped confession, Elizabeth Wetlaufer laid out a 10-year career as a serial killer. She worked in a series of nursing homes and from time to time would give one of the residents too much insulin. She said a red surge of anger would overtake her.
Part of me had started to believe that it was the devil, and part of me thought it might be God.
She told several people what she'd done, but it wasn't until she told a psychiatrist that the police were called. Danielle Capelli, ABC News, Toronto.
This is ABC News.
It's an era of politics like we've never seen before. I'm ABC News Chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl. Join me on my podcast, Powerhouse Politics. We go beyond the headlines of the day with in-depth interviews, talking to the people shaping our political landscape. And of course, we leave room for the ABC reporters on the front lines. It's Powerhouse Politics with me, Jonathan Karl. Check it out on iTunes or abcnewspodcast.com.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area this morning, we can expect sunny skies at a high of 93 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Tonight, it'll be clear, a low 65 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Sunday should be sunny, our high 92 with winds to 20 miles an hour. It'll be clear and breezy Sunday night with a low of 66 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Monday should be sunny with a high of 91. For Redlands, we'll have a sunny day with a high of 94 with winds to 20 miles an hour. For Palm Springs, it'll be mostly sunny, our high 106. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
The Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party meets every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. for informal breakfast and discussion. And they meet each month on the second Thursday at 5 p.m., all at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning. Listen to interesting speakers, learn about our Constitution with our free classes, enjoy friendly discussions, and informal dining. Come join us. For more information, call Glenn Stoll, 951-316-3843.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Dennis Jackson has made it to the studio. Have him with me. Hey, Dennis, good to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
Now, we just spent an hour with George Riley, and I'm going to tell you what, it was good information, but I want to emphasize the Republican Party has been infiltrated, especially in California. People like Charles Munger using his wealth to manipulate and mold the party into what he wants it to be is a very serious issue and really is happening. I remember when a different co-host used to be on this program, and I talked about infiltration and the establishment and so on and so forth. And there would be a disagreement. He said, "Oh, come on, Doug, I think you're over." Here in California, it is true, it is real, and it is out of control. We really don't have two parties. Sometimes it seems like. Now that said, that doesn't mean that we abandon the state. That does not mean we move out per se. We got to fight for the state, turn it around. And I'm a firm believer it can be turned around. But it begins with education. And one of the programs that I'm working with education, we want to get a computer education program in place also. But starting in August, I'm going to be teaching government and economics through the a homeschool satellite system. And matter of fact, I'm writing a whole new textbook for it, 2 textbooks for it. So be on the lookout. I'll let you know when they're ready for you to purchase, because you can purchase them as well. Also, we are working on after school programs at the public school level, which we will use these same curriculums, and to get constitutional studies, civics and constitutional studies into our city neighborhoods. And I'm working with a great group of individuals to work towards that. And, because education is the true civil rights. Frederick Douglass said that when he first heard about the Constitution, he didn't like it. And then he learned how to read, he read it, and he loved it. Ignorance is bondage. Education is emancipation. Okay. You want to call in? Have something to say about what I'm doing or saying? 951-922-3532. Matter of fact, our listener on Facebook says I should try getting the curriculum into the local libraries too. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. Once we get it ready to roll, I'll give you a call. Hey, you know how it is. Dennis has been around me long enough. Hey, if you have an idea, that means you're going to carry the bucket full of water for it. Okay. Let's start working our way through this week's big stories of the week, brought to you by All-Star Collision, allstarci.com. If you need your body worked on, your cars, that is, All-Star Collision is the place to take
Good
your
correction.
vehicle. I'm just having a little fun here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the Supreme Court that may be in place within the next few days to lift the ban on the travel ban. In Trump's travel ban executive order, the laws he is executing with the order are listed in the order. I mentioned that earlier, did I not? Among them is a law that gives the president the ability to prohibit persons from entering the United States if he believes they may be a danger to the national security of this country. Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution authorizes Congress to make laws prohibiting persons from migrating into the United States. Based on the original intent, Trump's travel ban regarding a few Muslim-majority countries who have proven they are sponsors of terrorism and willing to harbor terrorists is completely constitutional. Listener says travel pause, not a ban. No, I think it should be banned until that country completely gets rid of the ideology that has a grip around the throat of that country. But anyway, that's just me. The lower federal court judges have struck down the executive orders as unconstitutional based on their ideology, based on their political beliefs, not the rule of law. And there's no authority granted to the courts to strike down executive orders of the Constitution. These judges have what they're doing there is no foundation in constitutional law, period. So now what President Trump ought to do is tell the court, the judges to kiss off, execute the travel ban anyway, do what Andrew Jackson did regarding the Worcester versus Georgia case in 1832. He said, all right, John Marshall, who was the Chief Justice time, has made his decision. Let's see him enforce it. They can't. They don't have an enforcement arm. Theirs is an opinion. The courts are only supposed to apply the law to the cases they hear. And so, but Doug, the religious, freedoms, in the First Amendment, that has nothing to do with it.
We're not denying them a right.
Well, no, not just that. The First Amendment says Congress can't make a law establishing a state religion, and they can't write laws prohibiting the free exercise of religion within our national jurisdiction. Has nothing to do with the religion of who is entering. Even if Islam's a religion in the first place, Article 1, Section 9 doesn't mention that a religious test cannot be used. Besides, religious tests might rear. The Democrats somehow have equated the rejection of Islam by conservatives as being akin to how Germany treated the Jews while under the Nazi regime prior to and during World War II. The reality is Islam is not a religion. It is a political system and a complete way of life that calls itself a religion. And it has more in common with the Nazis than it does with the persecuted Jews. So that said, Commander-in-Chief, his primary function is national security. His job is to protect this nation. These countries listed have been shown to be friendly and to fund terrorism. So now it's all about national security. And now this executive order, it's the second one. The first one, they decided not to fight and try to protect. So the language was changed to be quote unquote bulletproof and issued March 6th. That's this one that's now up, for the fight. And in addition to the bulletproof language, they also removed Iraq from the list of countries. Now we have to understand, when we're being called intolerant by the left because of wanting us to protect our country from Islamic terrorism, understand the Islamic culture has declared war on the United States. The liberal left Democrats are treating this like it's some type of slight misunderstanding. What about Islamic intolerance? How about we ban mosques in the United States until Muslim countries start welcoming the building of churches and synagogues on their lands? Did you know if you fly into a Muslim country and they search you and discover you have a Bible, that Bible will be destroyed on sight? What about the genocide against Christians occurring in Muslim-majority countries? Is that tolerance? During World War II, when we were at war with Germany, Italy, and Japan, we banned persons from those countries coming in. Would these judges have considered that ban against persons from the Axis powers intolerant? The law that started this whole thing, in fact, was originally the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, the McCarran-Walter Act, which gives the president the allowance to restrict immigration into the United States if he believes the persons are a danger to our national security. So, in other words, a law exists for him to execute with the executive order. So this has nothing to do with the law. The court's attacks against the executive order has nothing to do with the law and everything to do with who wrote the executive order. The courts are misbehaving, and Congress and the president are letting them do it. The judicial branch is supposed to be the weakest of the three branches. They're not supposed to be a check against Congress or the president. Other checks exist or existed, 17th Amendment, for example, to take care of that. The judicial branch's job is clear. Their job simply is to apply the law to the cases they hear. If they believe the law is unconstitutional or unjust, then they can issue an opinion so that Congress may reconsider the law. What they are doing now has nothing to do with applying the law or the rule of law. These leftist judges are simply ruling against the president for political reasons, and they are misinterpreting the law and making it sound like their rulings are within the law. They all need to be thrown off their benches, replaced, or these inferior courts need to be dismantled and the regions absorbed by another court district. And you know what? Congress has that authority, along with the authority also to strike down these unconstitutional rulings. That's called the Exceptions Clause. It's in Article 3. Start with you, Dennis. What's your thoughts?
Well, I agree, as you and I have talked before, that there's no enforcement, in the judicial side, and I don't know why, other than I think they're trying to play to the sentiments to get the Supreme Court to give them the ruling, because then everybody would accept it. But if they don't get the ruling, or even prior to the ruling, I don't know why they just didn't go ahead and enforce it. Just do it. But evidently his team doesn't feel that that's an option. They're going with the standard wisdom.
Well, the listener communicating with me on Facebook basically talked about a few of these refugees that turned out to be good people, and they told her straight up, only good Muslims are dead Muslim. They're not Muslims. Do those people exist? Are they mixed into this population? Absolutely. Do we want to be able to bring them into the country? I would love to. Here's the problem. The mixture is filled with jihadists. And as a country, we don't have the ability, because of how they lie, of determining who's the good and who's the bad. That's why we were banning, Germans from coming to this country during our war with Nazi Germany and so on and so forth. Couldn't tell the good from the bad. It's not being inconsiderate or insensitive or racist. We can't tell the good from the bad.
Well, if you had people coming to your home or coming to any place that you had authority over and you were in charge of security and were concerned about things, you would put together something in place. And all these people that are concerned about it, they lock their front doors. They have probably maybe fences and gates around their home. They secure their belongings. They follow up on their family members to make sure they're taken care of. They give instructions to their children. They organize. It's just common sense. But yet, if we try to do it on a national level because people are trying to destroy our country from within, they attach phobias to all this stuff to make it look like we're the bad guys. But all the other countries involved, if you want to go to Mexico and buy property, how's that work out?
The listener says that's why it makes sense to set up safe zones in the refugees countries and protect them over there. I don't know if we're capable of doing that, but that's definitely a good idea.
Well, that's been brought up.
Yeah, and it's definitely been brought up. I don't know if we have the personnel and the wherewithal and the capability and all that. Now, that said, let me ask Alex this. Refugee, the term refugee, does that mean permanent immigration, Alex?
No, it doesn't. But I noticed parenthetically that Eric Holder got convicted of contempt of Congress, and he and Obama simply ignored it, the way you're talking about ignoring some of these unconstitutional Supreme Court rulings. Now, as I study...
just federal court rulings, lower judges even.
As I study the communist world in the past, I find that at least half of their activities revolved around obtaining and distributing American passports. They got the passports from dead babies. They got the passports from volunteers to the Spanish Civil War. Browder,
and then Kevin De Leon in the assembly there, or Senate actually, up there in Sacramento, handed them out to family members, I bet.
Well, Earl Browder actually went to jail
right.
for passport violations. So it was incumbent now, and I'm saying I've got the goods on these people. The Marxists and the jihadists are running the same game. Their infiltration, their success depends on their infiltration.
Right, and how violent they are and how influential they are is based on that percentage. Once it gets above 5%, they start to get uppity. Once it gets past 10%, the violence is full throttle.
I got a quote here from a letter I wrote a while back, a paragraph that reinforces what you said last week. And that is that Marxism-Leninism is a religious cult dressed up in political and economic trappings. It is therefore more nearly a virus of the soul than a system of the intellect. It is a non-symbiotic parasite whose host will surely sicken and die, one after the other. But the disease lives on in the hearts of enchanted, deluded victims who mistake feverish delirium for divine ecstasy.
We are at 20 after the hour, but we have no break because the second hour is listener paid for. So there are no breaks during the second hour. That said, I do want to move on to the next topic. Trump pulls out of Paris Climate Accord, and Europe's not happy. In fact, there was a newspaper in Germany that basically, I won't say the words, instead I'll tell you what it essentially means, gave Trump the middle finger. And it was his parting shot pulling out of the climate accord. We are one of 3 countries that have not either signed it or considered signing it, being a part of it now. The other 2 countries are totally out of it, Nicaragua and Syria. Now, that said, he fulfilled the campaign promise. Climate change, man-made climate change, is a hoax, and he knows it. And for us to spend all this money on a wasted attempt, and even by their own models, would do very little to change the catastrophe that's coming.
0.5%.
And they're freaking out, man. I mean, they are freaking out over the fact that we pulled out of it. Well, you got to save the planet. There's no planet. The planet can take care of itself, first of all. Second of all, human influence is so minute that we couldn't stop climate change if we wanted to. Third of all, we've been cooling over the last 20 years. Now, that said, it was really especially, this is why the German newspaper gave Trump the big middle finger. By pulling out, he was really giving Germany a middle finger because they're the leaders, really, when it comes to this accord. What do you think?
I can say for sure that the issue is a strictly a redistribution of wealth. We are going to have to, if we adopted it, we would have to spend trillions of dollars. We're supposed to send something like $3 billion a year overseas to these other countries. The other countries involved, like China and India, which are hugely polluting countries, they not only don't have to stop polluting, they don't have to cut it down. They can continue increasing their pollution for the next 5 years.
Well, let's go a little bit beyond this, and I wrote about this. What they want to do through the accord would cause the regulations would increase energy costs for American families and businesses, causing an overall average shortfall of nearly 400,000 jobs and total income loss of more than $20,000 for a family of 4 by the year 2035. By the end of the century, a drop in somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3 degrees.
Well, you got to figure.
So you're going to completely destroy an economy for, based on their models, a negligible change.
While we're shutting down our economy, the Chinese are building coal-fired hydroelectric plants 2 a week.
Right.
So what effect do we have? None.
All right, Dennis, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree. The whole situation with China and India, if you allow them to continue what they're doing, and we do cut back even to the levels they ask us to, the overall effect is at best probably a break even, if that. So there is no real net game here. It's all wringing of hands. It's emotion. It's hysteria. It's throwing out the worry to make people think they're at risk. So they'll react emotionally instead of logically. They keep saying 97% of the scientists all agree with this. But I know I've read, and you've read as well, many very well-established climatologists, PhDs, that have come out against this.
Right.
And I would love to see an actual debate of having 8 hours on some stage somewhere, covered live, where party A gets up and makes his point, then B gets up and they refute, and they go back just like a regular debate, opened up to where you can see it all. But the liberals won't get in the same room, with the climate change deniers. But I think you ought to force them to get together and have that debate out in the open and let the people decide. But the media is trying to convince you as well as the elites.
Many of the scientists on our side have been cowed by the threat of retaliation, of losing their jobs, losing their positions.
They lose their jobs. They don't get their funding for their research papers.
Right.
They're excluded. They're anathema.
All right. Next topic. The San Diego School District has bowed to Islam, has submitted to Islam, and the California School Board voted unanimously to start incorporating more Muslim-themed lessons in classrooms, and the officials of the San Diego Unified School District are running with it, saying it will help combat Islamophobia. They are instituting programs to teach Islam, to allow Islamic prayers during school, and even institute prayer rooms on campuses.
Are they doing
what
that
about
for
a
the other
constitutional?
No, of course
How does that stand?
So, because, these poor Muslim students, being offended and being around, surrounded by people who may not agree with, them. I mean, how horrible. But see, what they don't understand is, folks, if you assimilate in this country, here's what you learn. You don't need a safe space. You don't want a safe space. This is what freedom is all about when I talk about being offended on it. In a system of liberty, freedom of speech and the expression is given to all members of the society. This handling with kid gloves for Islam is not freedom. What is happening in San Diego is not surprising. And the idea actually hasn't been popular with the local families. They were very upset about the preferential treatment for Muslims.
It's unconstitutional.
My message to the poor, sad Muslims, suck it up or leave the country. if you don't like the reality of a free society. You can't offend me. I won't allow anybody to have that kind of power over my emotions. But now that said, what about the Christians? Because you brought this up a second, Dennis. Well, do they get a prayer room? I mean, I remember when my daughter was in high school, she was asked to tuck her crucifix under her shirt because it might be offensive. It might make other students sad. So when I confronted the teacher, I walk in, the teacher's got a statue of Buddha on her desk and a rainbow flowery peace symbol on the wall on her bulletin board. And when I pointed those out, she says, "Well, no, yeah, but those are not symbols of hate like the cross."
Oh.
So, of course, I'm sure she has a Che Guevara shirt at home somewhere too. Now, but the thing is, the whole thing about Constitution, isn't the Constitution about not giving preferential treatment to anybody? But yet you've got a regime infiltrating our system based on Quranic teachings that are not compatible with our Constitution. And we're going to bend over backwards and kiss our own butts to make them happy? Really? What do you think, Alex?
On The View yesterday, they said specifically that Christians were equally bad as the jihadis, and how dare we criticize the jihadis when we are so evil. That's what they said. They're insane.
Yeah, because Christians are actually the evil ones, right?
They're insane.
Oh, by the way, this comes right about the same time that U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has declined a request to host an event to mark Islam's holy month of Ramadan, which is breaking with a bipartisan tradition in place with few exceptions for nearly 20 years. So, and my response to that is, should the United States government have hosted a celebration of Nazi, Italian, fascist, or Japanese holidays during World War II?
Well, I have expressed several times that I don't talk to liberals much anymore because there isn't any reasoning with them. They've literally gone over the line now. They're losing their minds.
And the listener brings up that Tucker Carlson just the other day on Fox News was talking about how a Christian group was shut down having a prayer group on campus. Shut that down, but give a prayer room, build a special prayer room for the Muslims? Really?
Do you notice a pattern here where the liberals side with our enemies, foreign and domestic?
Right. Well, the students are nuts. I mean, they don't even understand what they're screaming for. It's like that Evergreen State College in Washington State, who are trying to fight racism with racism. They claim that whites are racist because of the color of their skin, so they're calling for a day without white people because of the color of their skin.
Mandatory.
Yeah, the day was established because of a claim that whites are racist. You're automatically racist because you're white. Isn't that a racist statement in its own right?
It's persecution.
And so therefore, the college is not a safe environment for people of color. So the protests have emerged, and demonstrations expanded because of a biology professor says, "Hey, he no longer feels safe on campus." So the students, activists complain that they're being vilified by him and the conservative media, and he needs to be protected according to the police because it's dangerous for him. Well, who's the danger here then?
It's racial persecution.
The professor called the day an act of oppression in and of itself, quote unquote, said he would still visit campus in spite of the demonstration. And that's when the cop said, no, not safe for you. Not safe for you because, that you might get hurt. Well, wait a second. Who's the racist here?
And what are cops for?
Well, do the enraged students not understand that assuming someone is racist because they are white or calling for a day without a particular color of skin, being on campus is racist in its own right? I mean, if you don't want someone to be racist towards you, doesn't it start with you not being racist towards them in the first place? Martin Luther King Jr. said that he was driving for a day when someone is not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Aren't these students completely disobeying what King wanted? While a white person should judge you by the content of your character, not by the color of your skin, Does not that same rule apply to you? Right? This problem is for the Marxists, the ends justify the means, and all opposition must be silenced or not allowed on campus. All right. Our illustrious engineer keeps reminding me that we have a listener who has called into the program, 951-922-3532, 951-922-3532. If you want to participate also. Ed Wildemar, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. Going back to some of your climate change and then a little bit of Islam.
Okay.
From everything I've seen and understand, all this has to do with just the illegal assumption of power, to take power away from the people, authority away from the people, and to impose it from the top on down. And there's nothing that I know of in a constitution that declares there's equality or anybody's protected, even Christians. That's all left to states from what I read.
Right,
and
exactly. It's a state issue anyway.
Yes, and so I guess if you could hear somebody talk about it and speak on some of these issues, I think there's something coming up on July 15th that you might want to speak about, since it might be construed as an advertisement. I'm not sure it would be. But anyhow, if you could let the people know something about what's going on July 15th in the Constitution Association. And
absolutely.
I'll back to Woodward. Okay, and I'll talk at you later.
All right, thanks, Ed. What he's talking about is Constitution Association annual dinner. Tim Donnelly being our keynote speaker there. Tim Donnelly ran for governor not too long ago. And we're also going to talk about racial equality and getting constitutional literacy out there. July 15th at 5 o'clock in Wildemar, right between Murrieta and Lake Elsinore. Tickets are on sale for $35 right now. The price jumps to $40 in a couple weeks. You can also buy a full table for $250. And so I would love to have you there. Go to constitutionassociation.com, constitutionassociation.com to get tickets, or come to tonight's monthly meeting, because we'll have tickets there as well. Myrna's Cafe, 5 o'clock. In Menifee, 26850 Cherry Hills Boulevard.
You know, Doug, it makes me wonder, going back to the Evergreen and the other colleges you're talking about. I showed you an article I printed out yesterday where a lot of the colleges are celebrating diversity by having separate commencements, by racially separate. And I'm just curious if 2 years ago, if the leading edge of societal evolution was started by the white guys, and the white guys wanted to have a separate commencement, I'm sure that would have been viewed as racist.
Oh, sure.
And it seems that the whole civil rights movement, and they take Dr. King, and they'll use his name even though they abuse his principles, to say that everything from segregation in the 60s, the separate bathrooms, the separate drinking fountains, the non-integration of schools. And now we are so good. We've come full circle to where now the crowning achievement of the progressive left is to have segregation again.
And this segregation was driven and created, this racial division was created by the first black president. On top of that.
Well, I wasn't even trying to attribute it to Obama. I'm just simply saying.
Well, that's where it started.
Well, yeah.
Isn't that what he called for?
Well, you have. They're feeling so marginalized, unappreciated, that they need to be with their own. But again, that's contrary to the American principle of e pluribus unum, of all of us being together and being one. It's the balkanization, yet another way, similar to what the Islamic effect has had in Europe. But we're having balkanization right here in our own campuses.
And real quick, to go back to climate change for just a moment, our listener who's talking to me on Facebook sent me a link to an article titled "Retired Professor Turns Whistleblower on Climate Change." This is at the College Fix. By the way, I know the senior editor at the College Fix, Jennifer, and she does a great job. But anyway, and this guy's a whistleblower. He says, "Hey, I believe global warming is actually a good thing because more carbon dioxide is good for the environment." In many ways, he says, well, yeah, isn't that what trees breathe? Couldn't you grow food further north? Of course, we haven't been warming for 20 years is the thing. That's beside the point. All right, let's get on to the next topic, or I'm going to run out of time and with too many topics. Real quick, Manila, Philippines, gunshots, explosions, but it's not terrorism. That's what we're being told.
Well,
it was a casino robber. Now this is going on as in the southern part of the country there is a Muslim uprising and troops are fighting a war in the southern part of the country against Islam in the name of ISIS, by the way.
Well, it's separate locations. I'm sure there's no attachment between the two.
Yeah, because a robber likes to use explosions to steal some chips.
And his name was?
They're not releasing it.
Not that it matters.
Yeah, Alex, do you buy that? That the Philippines gunshots, explosions was not terrorism?
I'm going to keep my powder dry. It's possible that this guy, they said he had a couple of $1 million worth of chips in a bag. It's possible. I'd like to know what his name is, and I'm very suspicious that they haven't released his name.
Why would you steal $1 million of chips? How are you going to use them?
Rob banks. I mean, there are people that just want to steal their way into.
Yeah, but the chips are only good at that casino, right? So when the guy comes back with $1 million of chips, aren't they going to know it's him?
I don't know how logical this guy was or whatever, but it looks like the people who died of smoke inhalation, and that makes it problematical. I don't know. I'm agnostic here. I don't have any idea.
How about this one? North Korea finally gets a missile off, and it's capable of hitting U.S. bases.
That I understand.
What's your thoughts?
We're going to have to nuke those guys, and the left will impeach the entire government at that point. But we don't have much choice. These people are getting on the verge of being able to fulfill their crazy threats.
Well, he's got to be quick because people are starting to die off from starvation, just like in Venezuela.
Well, they've been dying off in North Korea from starvation for years, but they managed to replenish the supply.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if they tried to play hard the China card to see if China is secretly supporting North Korea or whether or not they would actually pull their dog in. You were talking about the refugee settlement camps. Would they be safe over in Syria? Well, it'd be interesting if the U.S. and their allies put together a refugee camp. Would Putin and the Syrian regime bomb it? I mean, who's going to do what to who? And we got all these people, all these groups that are all making nice with each other. It'd be good to know who your friends are and who your enemies are. And calling their bluff, which to some degree Trump has done with the European guys, at least in regard to climate change. I don't mind somebody disagreeing with me. I just would like them to be open about it. But deception is not open.
Speaking of, go ahead, Alex.
We had a situation like that in Africa. I think it was Rwanda, and Bill Clinton admits that he allowed that safe sanctuary to be annihilated. We did nothing. The UN did nothing. We just stood back and watched while they killed all those innocent people.
Speaking of deception, Comey is going to be testifying June 8th.
He's painted himself into a rather interesting box.
Well, here's something that's fascinating about James Comey, and we're talking about now the scandal, the Russian involvement in the election, the names being released, that kind of stuff. And Comey states that he wrote a memo, or no, he did write a memo stating that in February, President Trump said to him that he wanted him to drop the investigation on Flynn.
Okay, he wrote a memorandum to himself. In other words, he made some private notes.
So it's just his word. There's no evidence, but everybody says it's a smoking gun.
Right.
But in testimony on May 3rd, when asked if anybody had tried to obstruct the investigation, he said no one had. But he's saying in February the president did with this memo after that testimony. So either he lied while under testimony or he's lying in the memo.
His performance with the Hillary issue on all the crimes that he listed about the emails, when he said that she didn't intend to break the law, he thereby made the FBI a political organization.
Right.
And his credibility to me, is zero.
Well, he's always been a Democrat lapdog. He's always been.
Well, I thought the memo of Comey when he met with President Trump in February, that his notes stated that there was no request by Trump to do anything untoward.
No, that was his testimony, and then the memo said, "Oh yeah, well, Trump said, can't you do something not to go after this guy," kind of thing. So there's an accusation that Trump tried to get in the way. Now, and the whole idea of Russia even wanting to get involved and then wanting Trump to win is ridiculous. The Russians have always preferred Democrats. It was under a Democrat, Obama, that Russia got the Crimea, South Ossetia, and Ukraine without even as much as a smirk from the Obama administration.
And what did Obama say to Medvedev privately? Talk to Putin
absolutely.
After the election, what? I can be what?
Yeah, more flexible.
Yeah,
that's what he told him. And Medvedev says, okay, I'll let Putin know. And then we go back to 1984, 1983, 1984. And matter of fact, I put the article on a copy of the newspaper article on politicalpistachio.com. If you want to see it, just look it up. Ted Kennedy was working with the KGB to try to stop Reagan's reelection.
Yep.
Besides, what was that quote? It was like 1946 or 48 by, what was that, Norman, can't think of his name now, Norman Thompson or something like that, where he said that the Socialist Party was no longer, the Communists were no longer going to run a candidate because the Democrat Party had taken on their platform, and America would adopt socialism in the name of liberalism.
Norman Thomas,
thank you. So, I mean, it goes on and on and on. So why would Putin want Trump to win if the Democrats are always the ones that are leaning towards Marxism, have always been friendly with them? And here's what's funny. For the entire Cold War and since the Cold War, we've been trying to convince the Democrats that Russia was the enemy. Suddenly, when it fits their platform or their agenda, suddenly they discover Russia's the enemy.
Well, you got Leahy and Jim Wright. Both of them dealt with the Sandinistas and the FMLN off the books and did everything they could to help them win Central America for Castro.
Now, I want to apologize to you, Alex. We're not going to be able to get into your book today. The guest, was on for the first hour, and we're just kind of, running out of time. I got one topic left, but this topic's right up your alley. It's titled, What's Wrong with Socialism? Socialism is nothing new. The Founding Fathers of the United States called it utopianism. Understand, when people call socialism communist light, that's not what it is. Communism is something that can't be achieved. Communism is after government fades away and everybody's living, kumbaya, right? Kumbaya. Socialism is the system, the governmental system that's required to take us there, according to Marx. And then once under the control, everybody's convinced that communism is a wonderful thing, government will fade away. Hey, Dennis, have you noticed any time in history that government has faded away?
I know, that's the biggest joke.
Now, the Founding Fathers were aware of this kind of stuff. Samuel Adams said, the utopian schemes of leveling being the redistribution of wealth, and a community of goods, communal system, socialism, are as visionary and impractical as those which vest all property in the crown. These ideas are arbitrary, despotic, and in our government, unconstitutional.
That was said by who?
Samuel Adams.
So they did know about that.
No, they knew all about this garbage.
I got a quote here that says, it's from Lord Acton. He says,
okay.
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So Stalin may have failed to create a half-human soldier ape, but he succeeded in creating a half-wit liberal totalitarian.
Well, early Americans knew the dangers of socialism. I mean, and when they were creating the country and all that, Jamestown and Plymouth both tried the communal system, socialism, utopianism, where the means of production was controlled by a collective system, and where all the goods and materials produced would be delivered to a central store, where then colonists would take only as they needed. The result was starvation.
Well, I mentioned to you, Doug, some time ago that on my children on their mother's side, going back 10 or 11 generations, are direct descendants of William Bradford. And, of course, we have the book, The Plymouth Plantation,
right.
his history of that. And we all know the story about Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving was so appreciated the following year with the Bountiful, because the prior year it was very scarce. And it was very scarce because everything was held in common. You know, everybody was communal, and some people worked and some people didn't. And the people that were working were disappointed by those that weren't working, and they didn't want their work to go into them. So everybody just kind of didn't do a very good job of getting a yield out of the ground, and they had a miserable harvest and a miserable year. The next year, learning from that, they said, this is your area. You plant it, you eat it, you live. You don't plant it, you know, you're in tough shape.
Right.
Everything went through the roof. They had great bounty because they had individual responsibility, and they knew they weren't carrying somebody who refused to work. Now, charity isn't carrying somebody who refuses to work. That's sharing with somebody who has a situation to where they need some help, and society should help with that.
Right.
Not necessarily through the government, but our founding fathers knew this extremely well. They weren't just a bunch of newbies on this continent.
Well, they knew from experience and from history. I mean, they'd pay attention to all that.
And we can't even get our current history right.
Well, and the thing is, getting back to, you know, it was tried at Jamestown, Plymouth, and many other colonies, and the result was starvation. Ami Horowitz, where I got the name for this segment, What's Wrong with Socialism? It's named after a video. Ami Horowitz has a video called What's Wrong with Socialism? And in the short video, he goes to Venezuela. And first he sticks a camera or a microphone in front of the faces of American leftist Democrats, and he asks, "What's wrong with socialism?" And all of them say, "Well, there's nothing wrong with socialism." Then he goes to Venezuela and he asks them,
"What it really is?"
They're starving, just like they did in Plymouth and Jamestown. Death and violence and starvation has become a way of life in Venezuela, and it's all because of socialism. Some advocates who are proponents of the United States embracing socialism, they say we already live in a socialistic society. You know, that's why you have, police and emergency services. No, that's not socialism. Socialism is government control of the means of production. But to secure your blessings of liberty, we do need things like law enforcement, emergency services. Is a part of what a government needs to do. That's not socialism.
In Venezuela, when they were running out of bread, the government solution was, who did they go out and arrest? The bakers.
Right.
You know, I'm just smart.
My list of the Dirty Dozen socialist leaders includes these luminaries: Benito Mussolini, V.I. Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh, Fidel Castro, Muammar Gaddafi, Pol Pot, Saddam Hussein, Jim Jones, and Kim Il-sung. Every one of them is a homicidal maniac. When you have socialism, there's nothing to stop a person from acquiring all power. And when they have that temptation, sooner or later they become monsters.
And here in America, the Democrat left has adopted socialism as their platform, and they're pushing for it, and they're trying to teach our kids that. Nothing gets done, unless we're told to believe that nothing gets done unless there's a communal effort, and the good of the community at the top of the list of reasons. They want your children to understand this as well, and that's why I was shocked. Well, maybe disappointed is the right word. When I took 3 of my grandchildren to the movies, that Lego Batman movie, it's a message of collectivism, front and center. In fact, the phrase "it takes a village" was spoken by the mayor in the movie twice. The scene is Commissioner Gordon retires, so his daughter Barbara gets to be the next Gotham leader. She inherited it by blood. She has no qualifications, no real experience, although she is held to have gone to the Harvard School of Police. And she has this wonderful, great slogan that everybody loves: "It takes a village." Sound familiar? It's because "It Takes a Village" was the title of Hillary Clinton's first book. Socialist commie Democrats are targeting our children through children's entertainment, through education, through everything else. Socialism, though, is starvation and societal failure by cultural suicide. Right?
Repression,
well, they're also
torture,
pushing
starvation.
Go ahead, Alex.
That's all right. I've probably covered it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the Elon Musks, the other titans of computers or Silicon Valley, or even some of the manufacturing guys that are reacting to the pulling out of the Paris Accord.
Right.
If you read the document, not only is there the math as far as the carbon reductions and all these things, and the monies and the transfer of wealth, but there's a whole listing of things that have nothing to do, with the climate. It has to do with social engineering. It has to do with the movement of the left that harms the family, that harms the Western culture, and that's written right into the agreement as well. Why it's written in there, I don't know if these guys are protesting because of the social agenda that we are no longer signed up to, or whether or not it's truly, the climate, or the fact that monies won't be available for, some of their businesses. Because, again, a lot of these guys make a lot of money off the climate.
I heard a lot of information from a guy on TV whose name I don't remember. He said that a few years ago we signed a treaty on treaties. And that document says that whenever there is a treaty or a executive action, whatever it is, if our leadership endorses it verbally, we are committed to it as if it were a treaty.
That's a bunch of bunk.
Well, they'd like that to be the case and not have congressional approval to give the treaty the same standing as the Constitution. But again, they're just it's like judicial review. They're creating precedents out of thin air and then trying to wrap it around you like it's fact and enforceable.
Do you know why we had a Cold War? Why Soviet Union was our enemy? China, the Communist China is our enemy. North Korea is our enemy. Why we fought against Nazism in World War II? Because socialism stands exactly the opposite of our system under the U.S. Constitution. Our system under the Constitution pushes individualism, self-reliance, personal responsibility, and a free market system. And that's why they have been our enemy all this time. But the problem is now it's gotten to the point where the socialists have convinced mainstream America socialism is okay, and that is something that it really isn't. It's like reminds me of that Italian friend I think I've told you guys about, who said to me once, "The socialists have ruined Italy. You need to throw them out and replace them with good socialists." I mean, if there is, even if there is such a thing, Greece, violence because of socialism and starvation. Venezuela, starvation and violence because of socialism. Brazil, right now, riots and collapse. Why? Socialism. Socialism kills either through violence or starvation. That's what socialism does. Now, don't get me wrong. Conservatives believe in community. I think I should do good through my community, just not through government and not as a part of a collective. All right, we're coming up on the final couple minutes of the program. Is there any final words before we plug ourselves that you would like to make? That clock's off.
I would like to say that I have included in my website, conservativecannonade.org, a paper and a reply, two replies, where a principal told me that I wasn't allowed to mention Vietnam. I was actually two principals. I wasn't allowed to mention Vietnam. I was not allowed to talk about contemporary politics and current events because I'm a conservative, and conservatives, they're just not appropriate.
Well, it's like my daughter with the cross, right? That cross was a symbol of hatred, but the statue of Buddha and the peace symbol wasn't, and therefore that cross had to be hidden.
Well, it's beauty's all in the eye of the beholder, so it's the same thing. And what's in their heart is what they reflect.
All right. Well, we're
paperwork is
running
at
out
the
of
end.
time here. So what was that website again? ConservativeCanonade.org. Is that what it is, Alex?
That's it. And the last item on that website is this back and forth with the principal. I think you find it very interesting.
Yeah, and I had a meeting this morning. I actually was the speaker at a political gathering, about 15 conservatives there in Corona, and we did talk some about the enemies within movie and other issues more oriented towards Sacramento. But enemieswithinmovie.com, it'll rip the mask off these guys that are really trying to ruin the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, it was a Corona Tea Party. I'm usually at their meetings. This morning I just was unable to make it. And I was actually sad that I couldn't make it.
Well,
but,
I could have seen you at 9, see you at 1, and then see you tonight at 5. That'd be three
but
times
we
in
do
one
need
day.
to support our groups, folks, so do what you can. Now, that said, I am Douglas V. Gibbs, your host, douglasvgibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. Thank you for spending the time with us. And every week we come to you with 2 hours of fantastic radio, just like what you just heard. Got other guests set up for next week and after that, so please join us and continue to join us right here, KMET 1490 AM. See you next week.
The preceding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs. News, talk, sports.
Check us out online at KMET1490am.com.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Breaking news in London on London Bridge. Police and witnesses say several people are hurt after a white van swerved and hit a crowd of people while it was crossing the bridge. This witness talking to our ABC News partner, the BBC.
A white van driver